who is not being brought up enough,
No.
but is quite controversial, and I think will be, is Jermod McCoy, the corner from Tennessee. He didn't play this year. He's coming off of an ACL that he suffered in the spring. Unlike Caleb Banks, different circumstance. Banks tried to finish the year. He went to the Senior Bowl. We haven't seen Jermod McCoy. Do you think that he's going to go in the top 10, in the top 15? Like, do you think that that's plausible, or do you think that this lack of tape is going to catch up to him and someone like Mansour DeLeone and maybe his teammate Colton Hood gets picked before him?
I think he's a top 15 player. Well, I should say, let me rephrase. I think he's going to be a top 15 selection when everything is settled in this draft, because we've talked about it, Joe. It's not a great top-heavy draft. Like, somebody has to go top 15, man. Somebody has to go top 20. This is just the reality we're in. Not every player is going to be a blue-chip player in this class, obviously. Not everybody's even going to be a first-round grade inside the top 15, more than likely for some teams. So that's just the reality we're going to live in, right? Jermod McCoy, when healthy, and I understand that we're talking through the caveat of the fact that he's coming off an injury, but when healthy in 2024, he dominated the SEC at 19 years old, and he, in my opinion, when healthy, is a top 3 player in the 2026 NFL draft. I think he's that good, man. I think he is one of the few players that I do think can argue for blue chip status, because he is at 6 foot, 196 pounds, a physical press man corner who can run. I think this is J.C. Horn again. Like, that's who I think Jermod McCoy is. I think he's J.C. Horn. Everything about him says J.C. Now, the question that I do have, though, is what will we see of him in this draft process? Because I was told, and again, this is kind of off-record stuff to a degree, but it's also like not fully verified, but it is of people that are somewhat in the know, that if Tennessee was making a playoff run this year, I do think we would have saw Jermod McCoy in the playoffs. Like, I do think that there's a chance that he would have been on the field, because, Joe, we're talking about an ACL injury in the spring. We're not talking about an Achilles. We're not talking about something even more serious and more dire. I know, like, I'm not saying ACL is nothing, but in modern right. medicine, ACL is not that bad anymore, especially for a 19-year-old kid, or 20 now, that hasn't had a string of injuries. Like, we're not talking about a guy whose knees are probably shot at this point because he's just had knee after issue after knee issue. We're talking about a guy who's had a one-off ACL tear. So I think he'll be fine, but I do have some questions of what will we see from him in the draft process? Will he test at the combine? I have no idea. Will he test at the pro day? I have no idea. I actually am a little hesitant that I think that he might not do anything, which is going to be troubling to some.
Well, I think that actually would be a mistake. I think that would be 1,000% be a mistake for him, because at the end of the day, we don't have any information, and he's athletic enough that he would have tested. Here's the question I think that ultimately gets asked. If I am a scout or I'm an NFL decision maker, I'm asking, what have you been doing this whole time if you're not going to test?
That's fair.
What have you been doing this entire time if you're not going to show us something? Like, you're not going to go do drills during your pro day, during the combine. You can't go out there and move.
That's very fair.
That would be more of a concern than it would actually be proving that he's ready to go. But you brought up the most important part about all this. When he was healthy coming into the summer, he could have been argued to be the best prospect in the class. Like,
I think you could argue it right now.
I
think you could argue it right now still. I think you could still argue it. I think you could still argue it.
But the problem is that we don't have any tape. And, like, how many times do we have players that looked like the best player, even with a full year of tape, either stagnated or maybe slightly regressed, and other guys passed him? So we can't make that same jump. If we just took the 2024 tape, we can make that discussion point easily.
Right.
He is, you said here, physically super gifted. He's fluid. He's physical. His instincts are great. When the ball's in the air, he makes a ton of plays. The one thing that I come to here with McCoy, and it comes from more of recalling how certain players with similar situations were handled during draft processes. I think of Will Johnson last year. Different player, style of player, slightly different circumstance, but barely played during 2024. And he ended up going in the second round because there was this overthink on his health. I don't believe he tested, though. So I think that McCoy has the opportunity to prevent that from happening to himself and still be a top 15 pick.
Well, I would say this too. The situations are, and I know you said it, but like the situations are very different for Will Johnson compared to Jermod McCoy. Because Will Johnson had something pop up late where it was kind of like there's a serious issue long-term health-wise for one of his knees, right? So like you're like, I don't know exactly what Jermod McCoy's long-term medicals look like. Like that's a conversation we're going to have more when we're in Indianapolis in a couple weeks to talk about, hey, is this just a one-off ACL tear or is this something where like there's degenerative possibilities? Anytime you hear the word degenerative in the NFL draft landscape, that's where you go like, oh, that guy's dropping. Like that's where it happens, right? Like we saw what happened with Will Johnson, to your point. Carson Strong, the quarterback out of Nevada a couple years ago, Joe, was going to go somewhere probably in the top 100, and he ended up not even being able to play in the NFL because of his degenerative knees. Like, anytime you hear the word degenerative, it's like number one red flag for me outside of someone being a real a-hole off the field, right? And involved in like a bunch of legal ramifications. Like, it is a bad news bear type of situation. I do not think, at least I have not been told at this point, that Jermod McCoy's medical issues are to that point. And maybe we'll find something out where it was like, oh, okay, it was a lot worse than we initially thought. But I've done a lot of digging into the McCoy background. And like, Joe, like, again, I don't think everything's been verified back to his Little League days of playing football, right? His Pop Warner days. But I can't find another injury on his record, man. Like, I can't find another injury where I'm like, oh, this guy's had a bunch of knee issues. This guy's had a bunch of things continue to pop up. Like, this is not a Jordan Tyson situation, the wide receiver from Arizona State, where we're like, man, we got a long injury history here, man, on the college level. McCoy doesn't have it. McCoy has one ACL tear. And until I'm told that there's something more serious to worry about here, I am going to go in the direction of that kid was elite in 2024, and as long as he is a year and a half removed from an ACL tear and full go for his first NFL season, I'm going to draft him as an elite player. So I would personally draft him inside the top 10. I wouldn't hesitate about it, but I do think top 15 is the mark I'm going to put on him, because then we have that little run of Miami Dolphins, Dallas Cowboys. Like, that's kind of the early portion of like the preteens and early teens that I think makes some sense for kind of a floor for a guy like Jermod McCoy.